gotta go big or go home. We're down to the gold. Never been a better time to put it all on the line. Ooh, yeah. Time to put it all on the line.
All right, everybody, and welcome back to the 12th episode of the Rumber Pod. I am your host, Ryan, here with my co-host, Spencer, and we've got another divisional breakdown, weekly breakdown, NFL recap. We've done too many videos at this point already, Spencer. They're all blended together.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an incredible grind to do these every week, but I gotta say, every time it gets a little bit easier and a little more fun. So we've got a good groove going now. And man, I don't know about you, but this NFL season to me, it has been flying by. I can't believe we're already heading into week 6. First week of bye weeks on this recap that we're going to be talking about here.
Yeah, well, and we need to mention too. I mean, Ryan, last episode we hit, what'd you say, 7,000 impressions on that episode.
We finally are getting picked up by the YouTube algorithm gods somewhere. We're getting more suggestions to our content. That leads me to suggest to our audience, right? I mean, if you guys haven't subbed up and you're still coming back, revisiting the videos, even if you're watching here and there just to get your thoughts on your team, that's okay. The goal of our channel here, we're going to try to hit on every team every week if we can. There's only so much time in the episode. We want to make it digestible for you guys. So if you aren't already subbed up but you're viewing, why don't you throw us a sub? It costs you nothing. It would help us immensely. Please. Please, a little more, sir.
Just a little
more
sir.
porridge. Yeah, but no, we really appreciate everybody that continues to tune into our episodes. We put in a lot of work and we have a lot of fun with it, and we're very happy to see that our content is starting to get promoted a little bit more. That just gives us some motivation to keep going, because sometimes it is a grind, but it's little victories like that put it in perspective that we're chugging along, we're doing the things. So with that being said, Spencer, why don't we just grip it and rip it, get right down to it. Week 5 of NFL action. You and I talked a little bit about this throughout the week, beginning on Thursday, that this was not a super exciting slate of games to us, and turning in on Sunday, there was not a ton of games that we found to be super entertaining to us personally. I mean, anybody can feel free to disagree. There were certainly some games that are worth discussing. But the first game that we got to take a look at here, man, is this finally on the board in the W column, the Chicago Bears against the Washington Commanders. I just got to say, just off the top of this, the Commanders just are a team that perplexes me. Week in, week out, it seems like they are the team on the field that wants to win the most. They clearly are the team with a lot of heart, and they want to win football games, and you can never count them out of a game, as we talked about last week. But this week here with Justin Fields finally showing us a little something, 282 yards and 4 touchdowns and 3 to finally one of my fantasy players, DJ Moore, getting me a nice little 50 burger to start off the week. I loved seeing that, and I think if you're a Chicago Bears fan, you gotta love seeing that DJ Moore is finally getting more involved.
Finally.
I mean, my God, what is the issue here? I mean, Justin Fields is partially the issue, and I think that the play calling has also been an issue. But I think if you're a Bears fan, you gotta love, even if it's one game a year, to have a receiver have a game like this. 8 receptions for 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. He just straight up could not be guarded. I think that there are a lot of matchups that DJ Moore has already been in where he's in a situation like this and they need to get the ball to him more. And finally something clicked here, man. And I'm sure that Bears fans everywhere are finally happy to get into the W column. What were your thoughts on this game, Spencer?
Well, and he's not done yet, let's be clear, right? You said once a year. I mean, this could be a turning point for Chicago.
It should be. It should be.
I remember, we talk about this all the time as it relates to fantasy. I am a huge proponent of the idea of when a team gives up the assets to go and get wide receiver one caliber talent, right? The guy who's going to be the go-to read for a young quarterback. In the past, this has paid dividends for that team, and it has led to a complete turnaround for certain guys' careers and a resurgence, right? Josh Allen getting Stephon Diggs as that number one read. It took his game to that next level, right? The more recent examples, Devontae Adams to the Raiders, hasn't had the same team success effects, but he has been incredibly efficient since he's gone there and has made, as we talked about, guys like Aiden O'Connell and just yesterday the game we watched with Jimmy Garoppolo. These are underwhelming quarterback talents who are propped up by the presence of that elite alpha number one. And with DJ Moore putting up a performance like this, I think this is the kind of evidence that Matt Eberflus needed to see, right? Like, the offense was getting designed very strictly around Justin's skill set, and we're going to continue to do, read option stuff. We're going to commit to running the ball. And they did a good job of that in this game, but the difference being, instead of kind of trying to spread the love around to everybody, they just recognize DJ Moore is the only legit receiving option on this team that can get it done on his own fruition. I love Darnell Mooney. I think with more competent quarterback play like we talked about, he could be a lot better than he's been for the Chicago team, but he's not an instant separating type of talent, an elite route runner like DJ Moore is. And to have a breakout performance of this magnitude, it really signals to me that they've found something here. It's not a coincidence that the last 2 weeks Justin Fields has taken off and put up suddenly very respectable numbers out of nowhere. I think they should continue to feed DJ Moore, and he's one of the biggest, as I said, separators. That's what Justin Fields needs. He needs guys who are going to give him guaranteed completions, get him warmed up, and get the offense working downfield so that they can play off of that connection.
Yeah, 100%. And even rushing Justin Fields, I noticed that there were a couple more design run plays, some draws. Khalil Herbert was very efficient on the ground, only 10 carries for 76 yards. Averaged over 7.5 yards a carry, which is nothing to scoff at. And, despite the fact that the ball wasn't thrown a ton, there were 15 completions to only 3 receivers. I mean, I think that just goes to show, just how unguardable DJ Moore actually was in this game. And not only that, but there should probably be an extra 50 yards and another touchdown on here, because there was that. I don't know if you recall this, but there was that one play where he caught it down the sideline where he was called stepped out. Some people have since watched the replay and think maybe he didn't step out, but
it's the second week in a row we've had a controversial. Yes. Sideline play from DJ Moore.
So, potentially, just tack on an extra 50 yards and another tutty on there. And I mean, my God, I think that just the fact that there were only 3 receivers in this game that caught a pass, and he caught 8 of them and just absolutely scorched the Commanders nearly by himself. Pretty impressive. And I think what really sealed the deal here was that finally the Bears defense played up to a very respectable level. They recorded 5 sacks on the day and had themselves a pick. Shout out to Greg Stroman Jr. for getting a sack and a pick on the day. I think finally this is just sort of what we were talking a little bit about in our divisional breakdowns, that the vision for this team moving forward was just to play, in some respect anywhere, play complementary football, where you have a serviceable defense, where you can unlock the talent on the offensive side of the ball and just outscore your opponent and hold scores to a minimum. This is that recipe. And as we've seen, the Commanders are not a team that's ever going to give up a fight. They got those dogs in them. They're never going to give up on a game. So the fact that they were able to hang in there and continue to put up a performance like this through the game with a very convincing victory to get in the W column, I think just speaks volumes to finally something clicking over there in Chicago. And
and if you need any more evidence, Ryan, too, looking at the performances of Khalil Herbert up to this point, fantasy players can attest. Khalil Herbert, Cole Kmet, All
Yes.
of these guys have been incredibly underwhelming in their production up to this point. And what happens when suddenly DJ Moore is exposing a exploitable Commanders secondary all game long? Now there's suddenly open opportunities for Cole Kmet to score touchdowns and get open downfield, and there's running lanes suddenly for Khalil Herbert to have one of the more productive performances of the season so far for him. Prior to his injury, he was running hard. He was looking like the Khalil Herbert we were used to seeing in past seasons. But yeah, I think it's all predicated around Moore. And like you said, the Chicago defense, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this came completely out of nowhere for me. They have been egregiously awful in basically all facets. And I think that the team as a whole clearly had resolve to strap in here and take control of this game. And they were not walking out of that stadium without a W this week.
Right.
One standout player for me on the defense was, TJ Edwards. I feel like he was all over the field in this game. Could have had himself an interception on top of the sack he recorded. That's one of the things I focused on in the offseason breakdown for the Bears was that linebacking duo between him and Tremaine Edmonds that they added in free agency. They actually came to play in this game and had some legitimate impact on the outcome here. But I'd say you got to credit the entire unit as a whole because, the pass rush was clicking. The secondary down 4 of their starters, I believe, was clicking as well, which is kind of unbelievable. Although, obviously Tyreek Stevenson had his downs in this game. Tyreek Stevenson had a few bad moments of, DPIs. But at the end of the day, we know that Commanders receiving unit it's an elite collection of talent.
Yeah, it's no joke.
It was no simple task to come out and stop the likes of those guys down 4 of your secondary starters. So it was a gutsy performance from the Bears defense, no doubt about it.
Yeah, 100%. And just sort of shifting our lens over here a little bit to the Commander side of the ball, it's a completely opposite story. I mean, on the ground, they literally had nothing going. 29 rushing yards all game, 19 of those coming from Sam Howell himself, who threw the ball 51 times. And
he was under constant attack all game throwing.
And despite all the pressure that he was facing, he did complete 37 of those passes for damn near 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, did throw a pick. But I mean, when you have constant pressure in your face the entire game, and you're forced to maybe put the ball in places you're probably not looking, especially to put it, that's going to happen. But he did have almost 40 completions, and just a complete opposite of what Justin Fields was able to do, right? Because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different receivers caught the ball for the Commanders this game. Which is just nuts. The leader of which was Logan Thomas, rating in 9 catches for 77 yards and a tutty. Logan Thomas is clearly starting to stand out, I think, as Sam Howell's favorite option at this point, especially in the red zone. And it's interesting considering the talent of, Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, and Curtis Samuel, who themselves had, decent days. Jahan Dotson was held to only 3 catches for 30 yards. But if there's a way to somehow marry all of these things together, right, you do have a very respectable running back room, and Sam Howell clearly is efficient with the football and was throwing for almost 400 yards and can put the ball in a lot of different targets' hands. If you could somehow marry all of these talents, that may be the recipe here. But maybe this is a little problem with Ron Rivera just in general. I think that's always kind of maybe been a problem with the offenses that he's coached, is that there's certainly been a lot of individual pieces that are certainly talented, but just the coming together of all those pieces for a cohesive game plan to put all of them in the position to win seems to me to maybe be a problem historically with Ron Rivera coached offenses. But the Commanders were not able to get it done. They did record 3 sacks of their own, with Montez Sweat recording a sack and a half, and Chase Young getting himself half a sack. But yeah, that's about all I had, Spencer. Was there anything else you wanted to add on this game or on the Commander side of the ball?
Well, I mean, I'll say this, right? Considering the result, and we know what kind of competitor Sam Howell is, if you asked him how he felt he played in this game, he'd probably tell you, I didn't get the job done, right?
Right.
We lost, what was it, 40-20,
40
right?
to 20.
But that being said, I mean, the Bears recorded only 4 sacks on the day in this game, but it is not telling the full story
Right.
of how often Sam Howell was pressured in this game. You know, we talked about last week about how Sam Howell is a guy that the Commanders are now winning with and because of, rather than in spite of.
Right.
And, you know, we never got to see enough of Howell, but we need to see if that was the case. Is this guy a game manager? No. This game proves it right here. Sam Howell is a legit asset at the quarterback position. 37 of 51 while being under duress the entire game.
And being trusted to throw it 51 times.
It's unbelievable, too, because I've definitely criticized Ron Rivera in the past for being conservative in his play calling, and I'll still stand by the fact that 4th down early in this game, he should have absolutely gone for that. You know, if they go for that score there, this game may go a completely different direction. Right. The momentum had just shifted so far in the Bears' favor after he declined to go after that 4th down conversion. But that doesn't mean that he played conservative the entire time. To be fair, they were playing catch-up, and they were chasing the Bears after they jumped out to their big lead, which probably led to the high amount of attempts. But that being said, you know, Sam Howell to nearly reach 400 yards on the day, threw a pick, sure, got a couple scores. He was the sole reason that this offense was functional today, with how inspired the Bears were playing, how piss-poor the performance from the Commanders' offensive line was.
Right.
I point to Sam Howell. Sam Howell was doing his best Daniel Jones impression in this game, and not the exposed, horrible Daniel Jones. Yeah. Yes. I'm saying running for his life and making plays at every turn to keep them in this game. And, yeah, I just think at the end of the day, I don't think the score really does reflect the outcome here for Howell. It's just another great game from Howell. It's another progression in what is shaping up to be a really promising career he has ahead of him. And then going to the defensive side of the ball with the Commanders, we are on full-on DEFCON 5 here with the secondary.
Right.
The Commanders' secondary has proven to me to be one of the worst in the league after watching them play in this game. You can't... I personally think you can't excuse... you know, Chicago's been getting exposed offensively all year long by lesser defenses than this one.
Right.
When you consider what the Commanders are fielding in that front seven, you've got, you know, Allen, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, and more that I'm not remembering the names of right now. But they have a dominant front seven unit, and they made multiple draft picks. They've been throwing draft picks at the corner position year after year after year, making signings in William Jackson III, who washes out, no longer there, right? Yeah, it's unbelievable. I remember talking about the Jartavis Martin draft pick as safety for them. It just seems to be, no matter how many assets they throw at this secondary, they are continually getting outdone by lesser competition at every turn. I just can't excuse the fact that Chicago comes out with the concerted game plan to go at DJ Moore all game long, and the Commanders never adjusted defensively. No. And it probably wasn't for a lack of trying, right? I'm sure they threw more attention DJ Moore's way once they noticed this, but it really goes to show the talent deficiency they're dealing with in this secondary, that with all of the pressure that they can apply with that front seven unit, they can't get it done on the back end. Yeah, I'm definitely a lot more negative about their playoff chances after this game, personally, just because of it's a couple weeks straight now of this defense really, really sucking. And it's inexcusable when you consider all of the assets and money that is pumped into this defense overall. I mean, they're paying 4 of these guys, I think, above $10 million a season.
Right.
On the line.
Not a good look.
When they did that, they were expecting 49ers type production, and that is not at all what is occurring here.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, see if they can pick it back up in the next coming weeks here. Let's move on here. Let's talk a little bit about the the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills. They will be moving to London, though, very soon, would be my anticipation. They have already played an obscene amount of games in London. I think their ownership has some sort of deal with the NFL where they forfeit a home game every year, or a home game or two every year, to play in London. And I think that it's sort of afforded them an advantage in these games because they played in London last week, and the Jags won last week 27-3, and then pulled it out here against a, on paper, superior opponent. But that probably just has a lot to do with the fact that they are in London so often. They probably didn't travel home. They probably just stayed in London for the week, whereas the Buffalo Bills had to fly overseas and, get ready for a game.
That's correct. They were there an entire week earlier than the Bills were,
right,
and completely acclimated to everything going on.
So maybe uneven ground there for the Jags. Maybe just turning London into a home field advantage for them, so to speak. But regardless, the Jacksonville Jaguars do take down the Buffalo Bills, who, by all my measures, should have won this game. But Trevor Lawrence, let's see here, 25 for 37, 315, and a touchdown. Certainly, I would say just average numbers here, but really the highlight of this game was Travis Etienne just getting it done on the ground. He got fed for 26 carries for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. It's just absolutely tearing a hole in the middle of that Buffalo's defense. The entire game. And moving on here, Calvin Ridley continues to produce. I think that I'm really curious how their playoff run goes last year if they have this extra weapon on offense, because Calvin Ridley has just proven yet again that he is him, that he is definitely the guy number one over there in Jacksonville, and Trevor Lawrence and company are certainly benefiting from that. Christian Kirk hauling in 6 catches on the day as well. Evan Ingram didn't put up nearly as many numbers this game as he usually does. I don't know if it's due to a lack of targets, because I don't know about you, Spencer, but the London games, they're on at 7 a.m. when they're on here, so I usually don't catch them until they're about halfway over.
No, yeah, I had to kind of revisit the All 22 to get a feel for this one. But what I will say is, it's funny we're going off the back of the Commanders-Bears game with this one, because look at the night and day difference on the Jaguars offense when Calvin Ridley becomes the centerpiece.
Yes.
I've been talking about this all year long so far. This Jaguars offense is different when, Calvin Ridley is leading the charge offensively.
Right.
This is more in line with the target share I want to see. It's probably maybe a little too little even. 7 receptions here. I think he was above 10 targets in the game, but you could do better than that. And as much as I'm high on the talents of a Christian Kirk or an Evan Ingram, I go back to the thing. Do you want to see Trevor Lawrence take the step? Do you want to see Trevor Lawrence develop? He needs to become accustomed to making that first read and developing that chemistry with Ridley. The 2 most impressive victories for me that the Jags have accomplished was that Week 1 victory where Calvin Ridley went off, and this one right here against the Bills. And I don't think it's any secret that Calvin Ridley was a huge part of both of those victories.
Right.
The Jags are far better off when they feature him in the offense. Everybody else becomes rotational in nature and kind of contributors to the bread and butter that should be the Lawrence Ridley connection. So.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's like we said at the top of this episode, right? Like, it's like Diggs going to Buffalo. It's one of those types of connections that just down the stretch of a season, the longer that they're playing together, even down the stretch a couple of seasons, as their connection continues to grow, just as pass catcher or as pass thrower and receiver, they already look unstoppable, and they've only played 5 games together. It is just a very, very solid connection that is really changing the landscape of the division, to be sure. But even in certain games like this, I think just given the location and the circumstances under which the Buffalo was going into London to play, it was sort of a trap game for them. Not super surprised that they dropped this one, but Yeah, things are certainly looking up for the Jags here, and
if I can just chime in a little bit more
of
on
course.
it, right? It's very ironic to me that they played the Bills in this game, right? Because the two situations couldn't be more similar, if you ask me. High-level defenses on both sides of the balls, right? Back to the time when the Bills had just acquired Stephon Diggs, a young quarterback, tremendously talented young quarterback who's still trying to get their feet underneath them and develop into that next echelon of player. And what is it that the Bills do, right? I'm all for sharing the ball around, threatening the defense from different angles, and the Bills have the weapons to do that too. Gabe Davis can threaten downfield. James Cook is a great runner. They brought in guys like Latavius Murray and Damian Harris to kind of be their bruisers. They like to utilize their tight ends, right? They go to Knox and Dalton Kincaid a bunch. I'm all for having that in your game plan, and it's a great way to play offense. But at the end of the day, Ryan, let me ask you, when it's crunch time and the Bills need a big play and the Bills need to get downfield, who does Josh Allen go to?
Oh, 100%. It's not a question to anybody in the stadium, right? Like you will throw to Stephon Diggs, and it's
who it's
should.
going to, and
Yes.
you can't stop it anyway.
You cannot
and
stop it
that's
anyway.
the point I'm trying to make, right? If the Jaguars want to go where they want to go this season and take that leap and become a deep playoff run type of roster, that's what needs to happen. You can get cute as much as you want during the regular season, get everybody involved, but at the end of the day, in crunch time, what is your knockout punch?
Right.
It's Lawrence to Ridley. I know I'm probably stomping on the point at this point, but my whole thing is when you get into these late playoff situations and you're playing legit defenses, those elite connections are what win you games. Let's not get it twisted.
100%.
And if these guys aren't getting the reps and the chemistry built to perform at a high level in those big moments, then it's going to really bite them in the ass later on. So
Yeah, 100%. And I think that also the other thing that we need to take a look at here is just how the Bills performed on defense. They recorded 5 sacks on the day, 2 going to Leonard Floyd and 2 to Epinesa. I remember watching, I think it was on the same drive that he got both of those sacks right there near the end of the game, and it was just a little bit too late. Ed Oliver recorded himself a sack as well. But Trevor Lawrence taking care of the football, I think that was that would have been the dagger if there was a turnover in the direction of the Jaguars, then this game ends differently. I mean, look at that one interception that Josh Allen threw, and the game was over. I'm pretty sure that the Jags scored off of that, if I'm not mistaken.
I think the Jags get a pick 6 on the Darius Williams interception?
That's right. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, man. Taking care of the football, and despite the fact that they put up good numbers on defense, just taking care of the football and not turning it over ended up being the difference maker in this one.
That's another one I'd love to mention is, it's great to see because we've heaped praise onto Tyson Campbell.
Right.
You said in the last episode we don't have many friends on this show. Tyson Campbell is a friend of mine. That man is a lockdown corner.
Yeah.
As good as they come in the league right now and has been playing at that level all season. But what I will say is, they invested a pretty hefty contract into Darius Williams to pry him from the Rams. And we talked about his best days. He was playing across from Ramsey, got himself a ton of interceptions in that season. And, went to the Jags, his play is tapered off. Whoops, you good there?
Yes.
His play is tapered off quite a bit since getting over to the Jaguars. But this season, I think we're starting to see, the Darius Williams of old starting to rear his head a bit and start making these plays. And I think the kind of pressure that gets applied from a guy on the caliber of a Tyson Campbell across the hall, right? It can't be overstated. Like, you don't want to go to that side when you have Tyson Campbell.
Right.
Quarterbacks just aren't going to throw to him. It's very much like the Seahawks thing that they have going right now. That in the Giants game, right? Daniel Jones would not throw to Tariq Woolen's side. He just wouldn't do it. And that's leading to a ton of opportunities for guys like Devin Witherspoon and Darius Williams on this D. That's going to be huge because we know Darius Williams, he is very capable of producing in the turnover department if you try him enough times. And so, I'm really excited to see Darius Williams start coming back into his own. I think that's definitely one of the more underrated corner duos in the entire league, if you ask me.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, let's move on a little bit here. How about my New Orleans Aints blowing out the New England Patriots, and for the second week in a row,
They ain't getting scored on, Ryan.
they ain't getting scored on. That's for sure. At least not by Mac Jones when he's riding the Pine Pony for the second week in a row.
Or Bailey Zappi.
Or Bailey Zappi. Man, what is going on? We said this last week, but I think it just is worth reiterating. The Mac Jones experiment is over. He is not the quarterback of the future. In fact, I know that Bill Belichick, he's trying to secure the record. I think he wants to pass. The coach's name escapes me. He wants most wins of all time as a head coach, right? But God, it's nearly time that he hangs him up, in my opinion. I think 2 back-to-back performances like this, you have no shot at the playoffs, in my opinion, already in the AFC East when you're a 1-4 team in the AFC. You've benched your starting quarterback 2 weeks in a row now to bring in Bailey Zappi, who, by the way, at the beginning of the season was cut from the team, was just released from the team, and then they brought him back off a practice squad. Just maybe a week prior to the season. But the stat lines here are almost identical from last week to Mac Jones. It's 12 for 22 for 110 yards and 2 picks before he got yanked. They couldn't get it done in the air. No touchdowns on the day for a total of 132 yards through the air and a total of 45 yards on the ground. I mean, my God, Spencer, does it get more dismal than this? I don't know that it does.
By the way, the name you were looking for was Don Shula.
Don Shula, that's correct.
At first, I'll be honest, my first thought was Bill Parcells, but no, it is Don Shula, and that makes plenty of sense. But anyway, no, what? Rephrase your question one more time. I apologize.
Oh no, that's okay. I was just asking. Less than 140 yards through the air and 45 yards on the ground. Does it get more dismal than this? Is there? What is the solution here? This is a fire sale team if I've ever seen it. We talked a lot about in our recap, our divisional breakdowns, that to me, I believe that I said that this was a bottom 5 wide receiver room in the NFL, and I think that they're making that case easier and easier to make week by week. It's just no kind of good.
I'll tell you the solution, Ryan. Bill Belichick, listen to me, man. I know you don't care, and I'm some random asshole on the internet who cares about my opinion. You have 5 rings or whatever, how many you've won, but start Malik Cunningham. Give Malik Cunningham a fucking chance, man. There's no possible way he could be worse than what Zappi and Mac Jones have put on film these last couple weeks, and frankly, I think it could open up your offense a little bit more. The rushing element is completely absent with those other 2 guys.
Right.
I'm not expecting Malik Cunningham to blow the world away by any means, but you asked me how to fix it, Ryan. This is the only thing I can think of, because they are in absolute football purgatory right now. There's no other way of putting it. And as much as I want to be soft on your Saints here, it's like, the Saints are not a team that horrifies you to go play against, even if you're as terrible of an offense as New England is.
I think their defense is certainly one of a quarterback that hasn't seen a lot of very good defenses, especially so far in the year.
I agree with you. Their defense is good, but is it even a top 5 unit in the NFL?
I'd say it's a top 5 unit in the NFL.
Okay, well, we'll have to agree to disagree there, but at the end of the day, you can get it done against this Saints team.
You can put up points. Certainly.
And the other thing to remember, Ryan, is this is an aberration game where the Saints actually managed to score 34. The Saints' offense has been horrific for most of the season. It's been anemic, borderline.
Right.
And when their defense is getting left on the field for as long as they are, you have opportunities to go out there and put up points. And I'm not trying to disrespect the Saints' defense. I think they are good, for sure. But I wouldn't have expected this kind of absolute shutout from them against New England. At the very least, you think New England, they can go back to their bread and butter. They can commit to running the ball. But no, Ramondre held to 24 yards on 8 carries.
Yeah.
Zeke, not much better. It's over for New England right now. And we both talked about how we thought that this defense could be a top 5 unit in the league in of itself. And
Right.
they've been racked by injuries. They lost Christian Gonzalez, which turned out to be a much larger blow than maybe we would have thought prior to the start of the season. But
Which
he
is
had
just
been so special.
Just such a shame, because he is one of the people that we, friends of the show, we are huge Christian Gonzalez fans. We love the fact that he fell all the way down there, and Bill Belichick was like, "Yeah, let me have some Christian Gonzalez real quick," and he turned out to be just as good as we expected. Just a terrible injury to suffer on behalf of New England.
Agreed, and he was an impact player for them, and his loss is being felt. So is Matt Judon, who one of if not the most impact player on the defense, now gone. So, yeah, things are going awry. I'm not gonna even point toward the offense because we don't even need to say anything. But I think to allow 34 to the Saints it really shows you where we're at with New England. This is
Without a doubt,
this is bottom feeder territory for me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's so crazy to me, because I remember when we were talking about the AFC East and our divisional breakdowns, like, prior to the season beginning, this was easily the best division in football. These were teams that were very, very competitive, that we were going to see 2 playoff teams out of. And then immediately, Rodgers goes down. Okay, that leaves basically, 3 teams in the running. Belichick's Patriots always have something to say in that division. But yeah, so far, just Mac Jones is not able to get it done, and their defense, with as banged up as it is, it's just a disaster on both sides of the ball right now. And yeah, there's just really not much else to say. But one
thing I did want to point toward before you move off is, I wanted to get your opinion on what's going on with your boy over there, Chris Olave, only recording 2 receptions for a long of 12 in this game for a single score. He did get the touchdown. I'll give him credit there.
I think that I mentioned this in the last episode as well, not to be too repetitive, but I think it's just too good of a point to not bring up again, is that somebody had tweeted that, turns out that Derek Carr is the exact same quarterback on the Saints that he was on the Raiders, and I think that that's ultimately what it comes down to. I genuinely question if he is the guy moving forward. Like, he's never been a guy that has, I think, really, talking about games about, like, quarterbacks that you win because of and not in spite of, right? Like, I think Derek Carr is damn near bordering on that at this point, because he just is refusing to push the ball downfield, and when he tries, he's just not hitting those passes. With receivers like Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave, and you have Michael Thomas as well, who is easily one of the best maybe at a certain point in the league, one of the best contested ball catchers. I just don't understand what you're missing at this point. I really
let me allow you, Ryan. Set down the copium pipe. Welcome to reality. This is where the entire rest of the NFL fandom has been with Derek Carr for the last 3 seasons. He is, in fact, a quarterback that you win in spite of, and not because of, in any facet whatsoever.
No, 100%. And this has been such a roller coaster for me, because I remember initially when Derek Carr was signed, I was complete doomer, right? I think you and I talked about this. I was like, I cannot believe that Derek Carr is about to quarterback the Saints. But then there's something about the way that he looks like, Sid from Toy Story. Maybe it disarmed me a little bit. That, like, it just brought me some sort of nostalgia for both that time in my life when the Saints won the Super Bowl, and when, I was also young enough to, like, just watch a movie with more childlike glee. That something about this man made me believe that he could potentially be one of the top quarterbacks in the league with all of the weapons that he has.
He's an easy guy to root for.
He's an easy guy to root for. Yes, but you're 100% right. Yeah, the copium pipe has been put down. I'm crashing back to reality. I need somewhere to crash, Spencer. And
I feel bad about it, because I didn't want to roast you on it, but I think
I don't coach him.
The proof is in the pudding here, right? I mean,
100%.
You're only getting the ball to Chris Olave twice in this game. I'm not arguing with the result, but it's like, these are all the easy completions. You're getting 4 receptions for Kendre Miller on check downs, Rashid Shaheed, who is your security blanket guy, and then Michael Thomas, who is your immediate separation creator. I mean, this is the Justin Fields the handbook getting used on the Saints offense here. Like, only throw to the guys who can make themselves wide open. You know, I just don't think Carr can pinpoint anything anymore downfield.
Yeah,
especially.
without a doubt. One thing I will say that was really nice to see during this game is Kamara sort of getting back in the swing of things. I remember last year there was just an issue of volume, right? Like, just with the play calling, like, just get the man the ball, like on the goal line, put the ball in his hands. And there was last week where there was a friend of ours, started him in fantasy, who he had like no yards on the ground and no yards through the air, but he had like 16 targets and 13 receptions, and it made him a PPR monster. He still ended up with like 18 points. But in this game, he had 22 attempts for 80 yards and a touchdown. I think him with that, especially if Kendre Miller can continue to develop under the wing of Kamara, because I think they're actually very similar runners. The run game could ultimately be something that pushes the team ahead, but I completely think that you're right. At this point, Derek Carr is not the quarterback that is going to put us in positions to win consistently. If anything, what we're going to have to do is rely on the defense to put us in positions to win, and for Derek Carr to not sell, which, if you're a Raiders fan, I have a feeling that sounds incredibly familiar to all of you.
There's a reason that I said that this was a lateral move from Carr to Garoppolo, and that Raiders fans should be celebrating, if anything, that they're paying as little as they are for Garoppolo for more or less the same production. But if there's any last stamp I can put on this proof here, it's like, yes, I agree with you. Alvin Kamara, great game here, gets 80 yards on 22 carries, by the way.
Keep giving him the ball.
I just did the math here for you, Ryan. That's 37 rush attempts for non-quarterback rushes on this team compared to 26 passing attempts. Right. I think it's pretty obvious how much they trust Derek Carr to throw the ball anywhere at this point. So, but that being said, it's clearly a formula that can work. They had a great game here. They're productive. I mean, Derek Carr is semi-efficient, does throw a couple touchdowns, so you love to see that. And again, like you said, Alvin Kamara.
A win is a win.
A win is a win, baby. That's exactly right.
All right. Let's move on from those two sad states. All right. Let's see here. How about another sad game? The Tennessee Titans versus the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if this has been confirmed yet. I think it was just a rumor that I had seen on social media up to this point. But is Anthony Richardson actually going on IR officially with the right shoulder injury?
That will likely be the case. He's scheduled to miss up to a month with this injury.
Man, and I just want to say, I love when things that we have predicted just in our first year of doing this come to fruition, right? This was one that I was hoping wouldn't come to fruition, maybe the most. Speaking of guys that are easy to root for, Anthony Richardson is definitely one of those guys. I've never seen like a rookie with like just the stories that you hear about him from the locker room to ownership to management to other teams that interact with him. The guy is just a class act, like up and down, any way you look at him. And not only that, but he's a phenomenal athlete. And one thing that we talked a lot about, Spencer, in the breakdown leading up to this and leading up to his draft was that it was going to be a bad thing for him to start on this team this year. And this is exactly why. He's constantly put in positions where either his line is selling or he's just trying to go out there and win the game because he's just a competitor, right? Like, that's just the kind of guy he is. He wants to go out there and win games. He was probably playing, in my opinion, the second best of any of the rookie quarterbacks behind CJ Stroud. Like, he's been putting together a really impressive rookie campaign. And to be put in a position like this where he just takes one of those falls, man, and just wrecks that throwing shoulder. He's really lucky it ended up not being something like a rotator cuff that required surgery. I think that it just made all of the sphincters across Indianapolis just because that is your future, right? And this is exactly what we talked about in the divisional breakdowns, is that when you put a guy this talented in these types of positions where he is going to be put at risk. You put in a lot of effort and draft capital into building around this guy and put him in positions where he's going to have to play the game, where he's going to be put in positions to get hurt. It's just really, really unfortunate to see. But Another thing that we mentioned in our breakdown is that I loved that they have Gardner Minshew backing him up, because Gardner Minshew is no slouch, and this is just exactly why. Look at that. Excellent. She wants to talk some ball.
Yeah. She wants to talk a little bit of ball.
But yeah, this is exactly why, backup quarterback is becoming the most valuable position on a team. Is just that when you have a guy go down like that, and you can bring in Gardner Minshew, who in his own right has won a lot of games with the same coaching staff. Just really love to see it. He didn't end up throwing a touchdown or anything, but he is a guy that you can throw in there that you know for sure is not going to just automatically lose you the game. So with that being said, this was also the much anticipated return of Jonathan Taylor, who, after getting paid, I believe it was $42 million was the figure that I saw, got the ball a whopping 6 times. Now, I don't know the math on that, but I believe that's $8 million a carry so far.
Yeah, I mean, they're starting him off slow.
Sure. We've got to work him in. But also with Zach Moss, maybe you don't need to. Why pay him at all? Which is the whole thing, right? That was the whole contract dispute.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Moss has been a bright spot for Indy. There's no doubt about that. He's been a difference maker for them these last few weeks. Turning in a 7 yard per carry average in this game on 23 rushes. That's highly impressive on the volume.
He just straight up could not be
with.
Stopped. Yeah, he straight up just could not be stopped.
But, I mean, going back to the point you made with Richardson, I mean, look at his stat line before he leaves the game. He's 9 of 12 for 98 yards. Highly efficient performance up to that point. Was cooking in the passing game against a very exploitable Tennessee secondary, right?
Certainly.
But that being said, I think I have to really give Shane Steichen his flowers here. Whatever he's doing from a run game perspective, scheming this offense up, I mean, he's having tremendous success with Zach Moss, and I do expect the game-breaking talent that is Jonathan Taylor, once he's up to speed and healthy, who knows what kind of games we're going to start getting out of him. And as you said, at this point, like with Moss kind of doing what he's doing, you never have to just completely load Taylor up. You can trust these guys to rotate in. I don't know how many carries you're going to want to take off of Taylor's plate, considering what you paid him, considering the impact he can have on a per-carry basis. But
right.
It's nice to know you can lean on this guy, Zach Moss, who's breaking out in a big way. And good on him, because, he had a rough start to his career, and this is like a Rashad Penny-esque resurgence we're seeing after multiple years of injuries with the Bills and just being overall kind of underwhelming when he did play. I was a huge fan of Zach Moss coming out of college from Utah there. I mean, this kid runs angry. He's got a downhill style to him with a little bit of shake as well. I really just love the way he played in college, and he's starting to look a lot more like that player.
Yeah, 100%. Great for him. Mo Alley Cox also went down with an injury that looked pretty serious. Hopefully none of those guys are going to be out for too long.
One more guy I'd transition to that I was also a huge fan of as a college prospect is Josh Downs here, who has somewhat of a breakout performance on, 6 receptions, nearly gets 100 yards for himself. Pretty impressive game from a rookie slot receiver.
I'd say.
He's relegated into that role, but he seems to be embracing it, producing in a big way. Josh Downs, one of the things that I loved about him is how physical he can be at the catch point. Although he is relegated to a slot on this offense, even in that role, you can send him on seams. He has deep ball ability. He's a pretty versatile receiver for the size dimensions that may limit him, a lot of people would believe. But
just him in that wide receiver room with the likes of Pittman and Alec Pierce, like he's a match made in heaven. He's a versatile guy that is, he's got a big frame that can do it all. Just a match made in heaven, and finally looking like they're figuring out some ways to effectively use him, and clearly he's getting the targets now. 100%. I couldn't agree more.
All right. I mean, we haven't said anything about the Titans in this game. Honestly, I mean,
Derrick Henry almost ended up with more touchdown passes than Ryan Tannehill. Are they going to try that? They're going to try that play once a week now, right? The Derrick Henry jump pass, because they did it 2 weeks in a row now. It scored last week, not this week.
This is also the second straight week where Tajay Spears has played more snaps combined than Mr. Derrick Henry. So
Yeah,
that's something to look out for.
certainly.
I find that very head scratching. Again, we talked about we don't understand what the Titans are trying to do at any turn here. But, I will say this. Tajay Spears is an incredibly talented running back. I'm all for getting him on the field as much as possible. But does that have to really come at the cost of getting Derrick Henry out there? I'm starting to get the feeling, Ryan, and I never love to say this. I never want to say this about anybody. But these teams know a hell of a lot more about the medicals and the efficiency of these guys. I'm starting to look at Derrick Henry with a little bit of a side eye here. What do they know that we don't, Ryan? Is it a nagging injury? Is it a fall off that they're seeing in practice? Because, the production is so here and there. It's been on and off on a game-to-game basis over and over so far this season. And they do seem committed to involving Tajay Spears. I think all of the stars are starting to align and point toward something is going on with Derrick Henry here. And I'm a little bit worried about that for the Titans, considering we both agree they are only a competent offense if Derrick Henry is producing for them, in my opinion.
Now, Spencer, this wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that you own Derrick Henry in one of our leagues, would it?
It's certainly a worry. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's certainly worrisome. But that being said, if he doesn't have a lot left, then use it.
Right.
And that doesn't have anything to do with the fantasy, right?
Run the wheels off.
It has to do with the Titans cannot be a competent football team unless Derrick Henry is playing well.
No, without a doubt. Yeah, when Derrick Henry is not playing well or not getting the touches or, not getting the snaps, and, clearly they have a record that I'm sure that they're aware of when Derrick Henry gets so many touches or so many yards. But I completely agree. Like, we are not there in the locker room. We're not there with, dealing with all of the injuries. And I think you're right. I think that just week after week, there's more indication to me as well that their signs are just pointing to something that something maybe not 100% about Derrick Henry, which is kind of a concern moving forward because there's a lot of people that are thinking that maybe this is his last year of peak performance, or that maybe we're already on the decline of Derrick Henry's career. Yeah.
And what do you make of that D-Hop performance here? I mean, we know that the Indy secondary is a highly exploitable one themselves, similar to the Titans, but, it's nice to see D-Hop having a signature kind of turn the clock back type of game here. On 8 receptions, gets 140 yards,
and damn near a touchdown.
Average.
Yeah, there was damn near a touchdown in the back of the end zone. Got one foot in, just barely got that other foot out. But I mean, he's just him. You know what I mean? There's a reason that this guy, despite the fact that he's been in the league so long, that he was just immediately picked up by a team. He's great in space. He's clearly a veteran at this point. He's great at those contested catches, finding the soft spots and on the defenses and putting
that one on the left side of the sideline where he skied up and just came down with it.
Nasty.
Just landed on his back, I mean, that was signature old 100%. School D-Hop. And this is just, it exemplifies the point even further, Ryan. It's like if you now have something like maybe an A.J. Brown kind of threat. It's not A.J. Brown, I know, but D-Hop can get it done still. And, that used to be enough for this Titans, when you were running Derrick Henry and he was dominating, you could lean on a guy like A.J. Brown. And, that formula can work if their mission is to, again, get to the playoffs and fizzle out, which is likely the outcome. But at this rate, if you're not even going to use Derrick Henry, it almost signifies to me, the plan is not in place. And as much as Tajay Spears, he's a talented guy. I know he can get it done for them as well, but nobody is Derrick Henry.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on here to the next game. Let's talk about this Panthers and Lions game. And now, Spencer, talked a little bit about the rookie quarterback class so far. What are your thoughts? I'm just curious your thoughts, because I don't think you and I have talked a lot about it just on a personal level, what we thought of Bryce Young thus far. But coming in at 0-5 down there in the NFC South with the Panthers. I mean, he played pretty well this game, I got to say. 25 for 41, 247, 3 touchdowns. The picks are a problem. That's something that's clear already up to this point. But you got to love the resurgence of Adam Thielen, kind of making it easier on him these first 5 weeks of the season. He's really proven that at least I know that I have had takes that Adam Thielen is not who he used to be, didn't have that speed anymore, but he's clearly putting some of those rumors to doubt. He looks a lot better than I certainly expected, and is making that job easier. But yeah, falling to a, albeit formidable opponent, clearly a playoff team opponent in the Detroit Lions. But yeah, what are your thoughts so far this year on Bryce Young and this Panthers offense? I know we haven't talked a lot about him.
Well, I feel like the entire NFL world kind of had their day in the sun trashing Adam Thielen this offseason, us included. And I never come off meaning to trash a guy, but I think it was highly apparent last season that the speed was gone. And the thing that I think everybody ignored is that, and I said this, I think, in the breakdown, that the reality is Thielen doesn't rely on speed to win. He never has.
Right.
That crisp footwork that he uses down in the red zone is what has always got him open, made him such a huge touchdown threat throughout his career. And it just appears to be more of the same. And I'm not surprised that Bryce goes to him as much as he does. Because, again, when we talk about young quarterbacks, they love that security blanket type of player. The guy who's getting himself open, creating those easy completions for them to get their rhythm going. And, Bryce Young's a tremendously talented thrower. He can make all those throws. He can do the Drew Brees-esque style thing and get that ball out quick. And accurately, right? And I think it works really well with Thielen's skill set. But, they had to chase the Lions this game. There was no getting around that. Honestly, I think 41 pass attempts may have been a little too conservative, frankly. I would have really just let Bryce Young go in this game if it was me, because you're going to have a huge game from him to go beat the Lions.
Right.
This Panthers running game has been night and day from last season to this one. Getting it done in an efficient, highly efficient way with the likes of Donta Foreman last year and the returning guy Chuba Hubbard, those days are over with right now. I mean, this is not an efficient running attack. They're not doing a lot. I feel like that contract to Miles Sanders is looking more and more like an albatross by the day.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not loving what I'm seeing from that unit, and honestly, I think that's the thing I point toward why this isn't working. They're not doing a good job taking the pressure off of Bryce Young. I think it's a big reason you keep seeing Carolina is poking around in the wide receiver market is they want to have their Stephon Diggs, or they want to have something close to that. They want to have their DJ Moore for Bryce Young, because right now he's just trying to make it happen with this, weird little pieces here and there that they've put around him. But without a strong run game and without a go-to first read receiver, I'm really not surprised that Bryce Young has been struggling to the level he has been, on top of the fact that their offensive line is one of the worst in the league, it appears. And he's running for his life most of the time. Honestly, I feel bad for Bryce. I'm very happy to see that he's maintained his health throughout these first few games.
Especially at his size, yeah.
And honestly, with it being unlikely that they're just going to turn this around and with one trade for one receiver, that's really the best I can hope for Bryce. So the rest of the season is just, man, keep yourself healthy, keep getting that ball out fast, try to mitigate the amount of hits you're going to take, because it's going to be a bumpy ride, and it has been up to this point.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. And on the other side of the ball here, these Detroit Lions, Spencer, my goodness.
They just continue to go.
Are they for real? Do you think they're for real?
Absolutely.
I think they're for real. This is a team that is going to make a deep playoff run. I think that there is a high likelihood that they're easily making the divisional round, if not just, well, the Niners are probably going to get the bye. But it would be insane to think that we might be looking at a Lions and Niners conference championship if the bracket ends up working out that way. Excuse me.
I'm not going to make any predictions about how far they go, but I mean it's undeniable that they are for real.
Yeah, 100%.
This offense just continues to roll, and they do this sans Amon-Ra. Let's not downplay
sans Amon-Ra. That's correct. Yeah, Josh Reynolds putting up 76 yards and a touchdown. Sam Laporta had himself a really nice touchdown for 3 receptions, 47 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had the one long one. Aiden Hutchinson recording himself a sack and an interception this game. That guy's just an absolute athletic freak off the edge. He is starting to really, really come into his own and break out. And man, this team is just rolling. And it's really interesting because we talked a lot about Jared Goff prior to the season starting. 20 for 28, 236 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's about as spread offense a stat line as I think I've ever seen. Is somebody that just gets the ball out quick, gets it out accurately, and makes good decisions, and it ends up in the hands of playmakers, and they give you the results that you're looking for, and you end up winning. You end up putting 42 points on the board.
Ryan, I liken this to the Seahawks offense in a lot of ways, in the sense that people talk all the time about how the Seahawks have been so efficient and producing at a high level for a lot of this season, but they haven't even tapped into JSN yet. They've leaned on their young tight end trio and Metcalf and Lockett. They haven't even tapped into what JSN can bring, and with the Lions, they have not even begun to tap in what Jahmyr Gibbs can bring for them. And as this season progresses, I do fully expect Jahmyr Gibbs to get involved even more in the receiving game. They're going to start creating designed looks for this guy on sweep plays, screens, you name it. He can do it. But the two guys you have to shout out that have led the charge here, David Montgomery looks like a completely different player on this Lions offense.
Outstanding, yeah.
It's amazing what a change of scenery from one of the worst offensive teams in the league for his entire career to one of the best of the recent, last 5 years or so in the Lions. That's what happens. They are a lot to handle in the pass game, Ryan, and it just creates massive running lanes behind what we both believe to be one of the top offensive lines in the league.
Right.
I don't know how anybody didn't see this coming. I guess everybody just put all their eggs in the Jahmyr Gibbs basket because of the draft capital they use, but at the end of the day, man, Montgomery is running downhill, nasty, through a motherfucker's face, like my man Marshawn Lynch would say. And that's just what he's doing. That's the kind of player he is. He's grimy, he's dirty, he's gonna get it done for you. And I think that he really embodies everything about the Dan Campbell philosophy is
1000%.
Brought together in a guy like David Montgomery. David Montgomery will win, and he will do anything to win. And I love that about him. And then the second guy I was going to mention too is, Sam Laporta.
Phenomenal.
This is never before seen from a rookie tight end, frankly. This guy is just making play after play. I know one was on a flea flicker, but that being said, he's getting those targets for a reason. He's a big body. He is clearly far ahead of his age in terms of, route running and spatial awareness, finding those empty holes and zones. As a fantasy owner of him, he has been an absolute revelation. Thank you, Sam Laporta, for everything you've done. And I'm sure that the Lions offense is thanking him in spades, because he has been nothing short of a revelation for this
1000%.
team that already was fielding so many offensive threats.
1000%. And like you said, they put up 42 points here without their number one alpha receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown, who at this point is just good for a touchdown a week at least. And not only that, but we also have the return of Jameson Williams, who they've said in the past they're going to start to work in really slowly. But when you got a guy like Jameson Williams coming back, who also is going to start blowing the top off of these defenses, my God, anywhere you throw or run that ball on the field, there is a guy that is going to make a play, it seems. And when you have somebody like Jared Goff who doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes, how do you stop it? It really becomes a question of what defense is going to have to step up and give us the blueprint on, stopping the Detroit Lions. And honestly, as long as I think Goff plays at this level where he's playing just efficiently and responsibly, they're a really hard football team to beat right now. And also that flea flicker to Sam Laporta, just as a fun side note, that play was borrowed. It's a league of copycats. Ran exactly the same play by San Francisco the week prior to this last week when they ran it. Which
I noticed that it looked identical to the Kittle touchdown. Yeah.
Yep, and it was exactly like the Kittle touchdown.
This has been the year of flea flickers, man. Have you seen this many flea flickers in the first 5 weeks of the NFL season?
No, I really have not.
It makes sense, though. I mean, teams are getting more and more creative with the movement and pre-snap motion and post-snap motion in the backfield.
Yep.
This is just, this is where the NFL is trending. They're doing some really creative stuff, and it's paying dividends for the teams that can execute properly. But I just want to highlight one more time. Let's show love to this Detroit Lions offensive line, because without their play, this is not getting done.
1,000%.
They're doing that meaty ground game work, the stuff in the darkness that doesn't get seen, but it's the reason that talents like this can shine. Why the Laportas and Jamison Williams, who hasn't done it yet, but we know is capable, and Amon-Ra's of the world, they're giving a guy like Goff time. We know that Goff isn't a world beater, but he can get it done for you when given the proper protection, and they just make this whole thing click, and it's beautiful football to watch from Detroit.
1,000%. Yeah, really happy for all those Detroit fans out there. It's, to me, the Lions are just damn near must-watch TV every week at this point.
100%. I mean, they're a very, very fun offense to watch. And let's not even forget, the defense still coming along in a big way, but Aiden Hutchinson just continues to go nuts out here. I don't even know that we haven't even mentioned Aiden Hutchinson yet, but did you see that one-handed interception that he got when he rounded the corner on that tight end? I mean,
diabolical.
He's a freak show, man. He is like one of the closest things to like a Watt level player we've seen in quite a while. And I'm not just talking about as a pure pass rusher. I'm talking about savvy. He's so savvy and just knows exactly where the ball is going, and that allows you to make those special kind of plays where you get your hands on the ball as a D lineman, or you get those bat downs that he's famous for. He's really, really fun to watch and special. That kid's going places.
100%.
So, I think that's enough of the Lions there. Let's move on to Houston, Atlanta. This is a game I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
You were in the chat singing CJ Stroud's praises, and
it's like the Brett Coleman curse. I swear to God, I have that. Whatever he has, I have that.
Where you like a guy and then he plays bad.
Yeah.
I mean, Stroud didn't play phenomenal in this game, but continually still efficient.
Yeah.
And goes on with the interception streak. Although I think. Again,
no picks
like
this
we
game.
Said, the no interception streak is.
I see.
At the end of the day, I think if you ask Sam Howell what he thought, he'd say he didn't play good enough, even though he played well. And I think if you ask C.J. Stroud in this game, did they get it done? No, because they didn't get the win in this one. And they have an underwhelming kind of collection of weapons. We've discussed this. It's been a while since we talked about Houston, but. At the end of the day, he's been playing lights out in many ways. The yardage totals have never been jaw-dropping, but they have managed to get the ball in the end zone quite a bit on the back of him just making plays and playing really efficient, smart football. So where are you at with Stroud right now in this game? What do you think?
Yeah, I think overall at this point it's just the finishing off drives. If they can have a couple of more of these drives that end in touchdowns rather than field goals in the first three quarters, I mean they clear easily. I think just the biggest thing to me that stood out, and I was thinking a little bit about this as I was watching this game, is that Dameon Pierce to me is starting to become one of those biggest what ifs in running back history. I remember just that first season he came in and he was just running downhill. He was fast, he was tough, he would smash you in the face, and then he'd burn you in the secondary. And then after the ACL, he has just not looked like the same player at all. And this is something that we see all the time. He's clearly a guy that he still runs hard. He'll run between the tackles, but just that extra gear and that extra, maybe 5% push at the end of a play to just really take him over the top. Doesn't seem to be there anymore. And it's not for a lack of volume, I don't think. He got 20 carries this game for only 66 yards, averaging 3.3 yards a carry. Just not getting it done on the ground, I think, is doing a major disservice to CJ Stroud just as a developmental project, which already he's looking like the best quarterback in this draft class easily, to me, in my opinion. He's playing extremely well. He's getting the ball out to multiple receivers. There was a couple of plays where maybe the play fell apart, and this is in previous weeks, and he was able to kind of collect himself and put the ball where it needed to be accurately. And the sky's the limit for this guy. It really is just coming down to the fact that this team is really, really struggling to get it done on the ground. And the receivers here were pretty shut down this game. Tank Dell and Nico Collins only combined for 6 receptions for just under 100 yards. So the fact that those first two options were limited, and Dalton Schultz did get 7 receptions and a touchdown. But I think just the lack of the run game is really like just holding them back from getting in the W column, because I think that CJ Stroud is already one of those quarterbacks that you win because of. And if a couple more of these drives can end in touchdowns just week to week, they're getting a lot more W's in that column, if you ask me.
Yeah, and to go toward, what needs to be done to get more touchdowns on the board. I think even though the scores haven't been ideal the last couple weeks, I think what they're doing to get Dalton Schultz involved in this passing game more the last couple weeks is a trend in the right direction, especially when it comes to scoring touchdowns. I think, Schultz has shown he's been able to be really great down in the red zone, getting, just secure hands, and he just gets open. I mean, Schultz is definitely an above average receiving tight end, and to see him get involved a little more these last couple weeks, I think is huge, and that's big because, as we said, Stroud is so talented. He's going to be able to make those throws in accurate, clutch situations in the red zone. You just need to get to those secure receivers, and I think Tank Dell kind of snapped his streak. He was on a nice little tear there, putting up good yardage totals, and so was Nico Collins. Those guys have been going borderline nuclear from a fantasy perspective because, yeah, they're getting peppered with targets, but I always found it head-scratching that Schultz was never getting featured a little more consistently.
Especially in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, he was the premier free agent acquisition. You think it would have all not necessarily been based around him because he's not that talented of a player, but I like to see that his touches are a little more guaranteed these last couple weeks, and that he is a featured part of the offense. And the other guy who I'd point to too is like Stroud is in that Justin Herbert field of things right now, where he's playing incredibly efficiently, playing incredibly smart football, not turning the ball over. But at this point, Stroud, let's go put it out there. Let's go rip it a little bit. John Mechie is a guy that I would love to see get involved more because he does bring an outside threat aspect that nobody except really Nico Collins brings. And Nico Collins he's more of a jump ball guy.
Right.
Mechie has the kind, or at least prior to his time that he missed, he had that kind of burner speed to threaten on the outside. And that's what it's probably going to take acquiring one more guy who can threaten downfield. It's probably on Mechie a little bit as well. He needs to play better, but that's another guy who I'd like to see involved more. And at the end of the day, if this Devontae Adams situation keeps devolving, although the Raiders did just win, if a guy like that gets moved again, I think Houston needs to be in the market for that type of talent. It seems
Getting
like that's
a guy.
It seems like that's the theme of the episode, right? Is it like getting an alpha number one in the hands of your young quarterback? It's massive for their development to have that go-to guy. You can take it over, yeah. Yeah,
no, I completely agree. I mean, can you just imagine if CJ Stroud has been playing at this level and then, just have an additional Devontae Adams, or just a true alpha number one receiver, for him to have just an additional security blanket that, and a guy in a big situation that you're going to, they could be a scary team in the coming years, especially if they draft well or if they trade well. How just depending on how they manage their assets moving forward, they know that they've got their guy in CJ Stroud. He's easily my favorite quarterback out of this rookie class thus far. Getting that ultimate X receiver for CJ Stroud may just be the thing to finally put Houston over the top. I couldn't agree more. I'd love to see some Devontae Adams with CJ Stroud down there in Houston. Remind me of the prime D-Hop days.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the things they probably weren't a contending team for D-Hop, but considering he really at the end just kind of went to the Titans because they paid him the most.
Right.
Maybe Houston should have considered that a little more strongly, honestly. I mean, everybody
Right.
knew that this was kind of a weird assembly of weapons, that there was no standout guy. Hopkins would be having a great season right now with Stroud at quarterback, and he's already
100%.
doing well with the Titans. But, you know, on the other side of the ball, I wanted to transition. What do you think of this Desmond Ridder performance? Getting to 300 yards here on the day, threw the ball quite a bit, 37 attempts, pretty efficient, 28 completions, only the touchdown, but did score one with his legs as well.
Yes.
What do you think? Is this a sign of things to come for Desmond Ridder, or just an aberration?
I think the thing that ultimately stands out to me the most is where he decided to go with those passes. And maybe we finally have a legitimate quarterback to feed Kyle Pitts the ball in week 5 of his second year. Kyle Pitts' second year? Yeah, finally getting some targets and receptions. 7 receptions for 87 yards. And this is the thing, right? I think this is where there was some struggles in the first couple weeks of the season for Desmond Ridder, is that understanding who your playmakers are and getting the ball to them. The top two receivers every single week for Desmond Ridder should be Kyle Pitts and Drake London, and that's what it was this week. They ended up getting a win in a very close game where they didn't turn the ball over a lot. He got one on the ground. And also Bijan Robinson, what he unlocks for you in the run and the pass game. Just very efficient use of the ball here, getting it into the hands of his playmakers. And that's ultimately what I think the goal of this offense, right, is. Like, we've talked a lot about the Falcons already and Arthur Smith, and really the bread and butter of this offense is going to be dominating on the ground. And I think as long as they can do that, if Bijan Robinson continues to be the threat that he is, he's a guy that you're constantly having to watch out for and game plan for, both in the run and pass game. It's just going to open up a lot more options for Ridder moving forward. And I think that this is really just an accumulation of all of that, where, you know, you finally see Kyle Pitts and Drake London hauling in some catches and some big-time moments that ended up winning them the game.
And it almost seems to me, you know, like Arthur Smith may be kind of seeing, like, this Texans secondary right now, it's missing Derek Stingley.
Yep.
Even with Derek Stingley, they're not a world beater by any means. Maybe this is one of those games where Arthur Smith says, we can actually attack this secondary in a meaningful way, and it can have a positive outcome for the game. At the end of the day, we know Arthur Smith just wants to win. I think there are games like this where he actually might be willing to cut Desmond Ridder a little more loose like he did. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's really, really encouraging to see Drake London and Kyle Pitts both having nice, efficient days there, nearly getting to 100 yards apiece for both of them. You know, that's just good for their confidence, good for them to remember they can make plays and be a part of these wins. And then, of course, you know, we need to talk about Bijan just continually doing what he's doing. I'm a little frustrated, honestly, with Bijan that they're not really ramping up his involvement just a little more as the season goes on.
I would be getting him the ball as often as possible.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, Algier deserves his carries. I'm fine with spelling Bijan a bit, but I mean, we saw in that unbelievable behind-the-back juke he put to score the touchdown.
That's like the third week in a row.
Yeah, it's incredible what Bijan can do with such limited volume, but they continue to kind of lean on the strength, which is the fact that they can create a committee with Bijan at the head. I'm fine with that from a football perspective, but at the end of the day, I think if you give Bijan just a little more carries, you might be winning games like this against the Texans on a higher margin. You know,
right?
It plays into their strengths to get into these defensive struggles to where they can control the clock and run the ball a lot. But that doesn't mean you don't have to be explosive. And but that being said, you know, it was a pretty good game from Atlanta here, and it has to be encouraging to see Desmond Ridder finally show something.
Yep.
After so long of just having the passing game being a non-factor, more or less, for this Atlanta team. So
100%. And speaking of pass game being a non-factor and finally getting going, let's talk about this Bengals versus Cardinals. Joe Burrow, welcome back, my man. Finally. Excuse me. We don't need to restate what we've already talked about on the show. Obviously, Joe Burrow has been playing incredibly underwhelming, and mostly due to the fact that I don't think that he can move very well. There's even been people that have been saying that he just straight up needs to be put on IR if he's playing this bad, and if he's that immobile and it's costing them games. I see that, but clearly he has shown here that something has either he's feeling better or he's figuring out a new way to get it done here. But 36 for 46, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception, with the massive caveat that this is against the Arizona Cardinals and not against a team that is maybe going to put up as much of a fight.
Not against an NFL football team. No, I'm just kidding. Cardinals have been better than we thought.
I was just going to say, as just a side note, they're another team to me that is like not unlike the Commanders. They're less talented than the Commanders, so they're not going to win as many games, but they were by far the team that was most written off this offseason, and they have surprised me the most, just with their tenacity, the way that Josh Dobbs has been playing, and the fact that they are playing hard football and they're playing to win. They're clearly not there to tank. But I think as far as all of my Jamar Chase fantasy owners, this was another big moment for you to finally have that pay off. 15 receptions on 19 targets, I believe, ended up being the final target total. Threw it to him almost 20 times for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. My God, with the next highest recording 8 receptions being Trenton Irwin, with the absence of T. Higgins there, and Tyler Boyd just really not getting nearly involved this season as I would have expected. But yeah, finally, welcome back, Joe Burrow, and I just want to say, again, on the defensive side of the ball, I don't know what New Orleans was thinking. There's definitely some players that should have been let go in lieu of letting this player go, but Trey Hendrickson just completely balled out yet again, recording 2.5 sacks. That guy has just continued to be a complete tormentor of my past as a Saints fan when he completely dominated in a contract year, led the NFL in sacks, and decided, you know what, that's not really a player that we need. Went continuing to do what he does. Very happy for him, but finally some signs of life from the Cincinnati Bengals here, who improved to 2-3.
Kid's a stud, man.
What are your thoughts?
Going back to what you said with the Burrow thing, I mean, let's be real. Anybody that was saying bench Joe Burrow, if it was saying like he can't play well and that's why we should bench him, it's like
just IR for the calf.
A completely immobile Joe Burrow is going to be better for you than whatever A.J. McCarron can give you at this point. Let's be very, very clear.
Now, Spencer,
about
didn't
that.
you watch the USFL highlights? Come on now.
No. We're talking about A.J. McCarron that was backing up Andy Dalton when he was a starter for this Bengals team. No, count me a disbeliever of A.J. McCarron. And at the end of the day, I would actually be all for getting Burrow healthy. But that's not the goal of this team, is to lose a bunch of games and then barely make playoffs. They want to win the Super Bowl this year. And I understand it. Burrow needs to play through this. And he will eventually get healthy enough, and it will have subsided, hopefully. It's a risky proposition, but you can't throw the season away over a calf injury. And, you could argue one way or the other that maybe it would be throwing it away to play him. Only time will be able to tell on that. Right now, they're focusing on what their goal should be, which is winning these very winnable games. At the end of the day, immobile Joe Burrow, the odds are still going to be far in your favor to beat this Cardinals team than if you come in there starting A.J. McCarron, and I stand by that. So at the end of the day, this is a very stoppable Cardinals defense, or offense. This is one that you can very much have success against. We talked about how the Bengals are missing Jesse Bates in spades. There's no doubt about that. But, they can make plays with the guys they have. They have their first-round pick safety filling in for Jesse Bates' role. And in a pretty remarkable fashion, I'd say. He's played really well.
Exceptional.
But, yeah, at the end of the day, allowing 20 points to the Cardinals is not good enough. As well as Josh Dobbs has played, they don't have a lot going for them. James Conner leaves this game with an injury. They're using some committee of no-name running backs. It's kind of inexcusable to give up 20 points, but like I said, Jamar Chase had to do what he did for them to win this game. And he did it because he's Jamar Chase. He's incredible.
Keep giving that man the ball, my God. Like, I think...
Yeah, my concern has not dissipated for the Bengals from this game. You
Oh,
allowed
me
20
either.
points to the Cardinals. It was a back and forth affair. It's going to be more of the same until Burrow is healthy and they get Higgins back. But right now they're still reeling as far as I'm concerned, even with this win.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more there, Spencer.
But did you have anything to say about the Cardinals here? You know, we never talk about these guys. We just slight them all the time, Ryan. We got to say something.
Well, you know, I just got to say that I really enjoy the fact that despite that, like I said off the top of covering this game, is they are a team that everybody was dogpiling on. It was so easy to just say that the Cardinals are the worst team in the league. And I mean, obviously their 1-4 record is putting them damn near the bottom, if not already the bottom. But I mean, I would be pressed to say that this team is worse than, say, the Bears. They're not. Like, they are playing much, much better football. And the thing to me is that it's very near like that Deion Sanders thing where every week seems personal. Like, that's how they come out and play, is like every team has already written them off and they are playing smash mouth football, and they're probably going to lose. There's no doubt about that. But they are going to hit you in the mouth as they're losing. And you know, I just got to say that's formidable. And there's still talent on this team. And no matter what, I think that just the tenacity that Josh Dobbs has shown through the first 5 weeks of the season, and just the flashes that he has shown, he is deserving of a roster spot in the NFL. I don't know if he is a starter yet. I think that remains to be seen, depending on what he can do down the stretch. In my opinion, he still probably shouldn't be a starter. On another team that has a true QB1, but Josh Dobbs has been playing phenomenally better than I ever expected. And I'd say that's just my biggest takeaway, is that this is a guy that went into a very, very bad situation, and he is putting everything out on the line every week to try to get them a win. And I just got to commend him for that. Josh Dobbs, friend of the show.
Major credit to Josh Dobbs, but I also think it lends credit toward this receiving core. This receiving core is
True.
pretty legit with some of these guys. You know, Marquise Brown
Hollywood
continues to be productive. He's a quality receiver for sure. Maybe a little bit of a one-trick pony, you could argue, but that being said, he does his one trick really well. And then the other shout-out I would give is Zach Ertz, the ageless one. Just continues to get it done. I mean, I think he's had 10 targets in almost every one of their games. And they went through the ringer, Ryan. They went back-to-back Dallas, San Francisco there. It was a brutal start of the schedule for the Cardinals. And, yeah, they got clapped and they lost the games because that's what was going to happen all along. But for the offense to be respectable and semi-productive through those insane defenses they had to face, and did well in this one too, like, you know, Jonathan Gannon, I have to give him a little bit of credit. He's getting these guys to play for each other and be united in what they're trying to accomplish in the future. So it's interesting to think if and when Kyler Murray does return this season, maybe there's some kind of hope for the Cardinals. I'm not saying they make the playoffs or anything like that, but they could go into next year with a good taste in their mouths and a
high draft pick.
And a high draft pick, right? And they made that trade, so they're going to have some assets to work with this offseason. So they're going the right direction. But final closing thing I want to shout out is, you know, Michael Wilson, a little bit of a down game in this one, but we didn't get to talk about last week where he had a really, really good game, high yardage totals. I don't think he quite got a touchdown, but, you know, caught like 7 balls or something. Michael Wilson was a guy I really liked out of Stanford. This is a guy that Doug Baldwin, you know, the Seahawk legend, swore by.
Right.
The only question mark with Michael Wilson was that injury history, and so far so good for Michael Wilson. So keep it up, young man.
Keep it up, young man, indeed. Well, Spencer, I think that's about all the time that we have for this week. It was fun, as usual, to get to recap another week of NFL action.
Yeah, well, hopefully we get something a little more entertaining next week.
Yeah, I will say it was kind of a snooze fest. Most of these games, they were not particularly explosive to watch on the television.
With the bye weeks factoring into
right.
Not all the best teams are playing. So.
But everybody, I just want to say thank you so much for continuing to tune in. I know that we have a pretty small consistent audience, but we really appreciate everybody that continues to check out our content week in and week out, and hopefully we can keep getting in the good graces of that YouTube algorithm and bring some more people along here to Rumbler Nation.
Yes.
Please hit that like button, subscribe, hit that little reminder bell so you can always be informed when we put up another video. And we really appreciate taking the time to check us out. And any parting thoughts here, Spencer?
Well, special thank you to our regular listeners that are rolling with us. You guys are awesome. I love getting, when people text me about the show. And Ryan, I didn't even mention to you, my dad told us thank you for that shout out. He was waiting to get mentioned, and he said,
nice.
Yeah, he said he
big shout out to Scott.
Yeah, fond memories of those draft classes we watched together, watching the Denver Broncos fans celebrate over Paxton Lynch.
Oh my God! I just remember, just as a quick side note, I want to paint the scene for everybody. It's a packed Buffalo Wild Wings in the heart of Broncos country. Let's ride. And we were sitting there, and it was the Paxton Lynch year, and Denver was on the board, and Paxton Lynch's name went up on that projector, and this place just went fucking nuts. And I could not believe it. We were the only table sitting here like, oh my God, it's so over. It is so over. I remember a friend of ours saying, like, you still need a quarterback, you morons. It's like...
Well, they thought they had theirs, right, with Paxton, but...
Oh my God, that was so funny. Fond memories.
That was almost like the beginning of the end for their whole success era. That was what began the avalanche of misfortune. So interesting. But
yeah. Shout out to Scott. Thanks for listening to the show.
And shout out again to the Hawk's Nest for always promoting us.
1000%.
Brought up over there, Brandon. We love you, man. We love what you're doing. And thank you for always supporting us, the Hawk's Nest members that are a part of the channel. So.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Enjoy this upcoming slate of football action, and we will catch you next time.
Rumbler Nation, deuces.
Bye-bye.